Yael birthed freedom for Israel by delivering Sisera unto death. Her tools were an unlikely set. Nourishing food, milk, and butter served to facilitate an execution. The terrible violence of the hammer and tent peg created new life for an entire people. Yael is not a warrior. She is a housewife, maybe a mother. She knows little of combat, but she is well versed in the rules of proper hospitality. No doubt, those very rules are the reason why Sisera, the king's general, who is enemy to the Israelites, seeks refuge in her tent as he runs to escape his public duty. He knows the peace treaty between the king and Yael's husband means she is obligated to fill the ritual role of both host and hostess. And she does so splendidly, or so it seems. Yael serves every physical need Sisera has, giving him more than he asks, butter and body, in order to show her full submission to him. But this submission is a lie. Even though Yael herself is safe because of her husband's alliance, her loyalty is with the people Israel. She knows she must do something to help. We too move through the world from a position of privilege and relative safety. Which privilege we carry differs from person to person. Many of us carry white privilege. Some of us class privilege. Some have heterosexual privilege. Others gender privilege. We may have privilege that comes with an able body. It is a privilege when you don't have to ask for extra days off to accommodate your family or religious holidays because the national calendar lines up with your traditions. None of these privileges preclude the ways in which we may also be marginal, in which our bodies are threatened. And I do not name them to pile up guilt and shame. Rather, we must examine our privileges as areas of opportunity. They are the space from which we can most easily effect change. Our privileges are one of our most powerful tools, just like Yael's family alliance with the king offered her a privilege to effect justice. And Yael was not ashamed of being a housewife. She didn't pretend to be a warrior. She served the resistance by harnessing who she knows she is. She serves it with the tools she has at hand. Yael's domestic hands don't know how to wield a warrior's sword or spear. But her wifely hands do know how to please a man and how to prepare and serve milk. Her nomadic homemaker's hands know how to hammer a tent peg into the ground. What do your hands know how to do? They will surely cast your ballot on voting day, but what else do your hands know how to do? Like Yael, each one of us holds tools full of power for both death and deliverance. That power may seem unlikely or unexpected, but for Yael and for us, the potential for the success of our tools lies inside the truth of our complex identities. Look, Yael was an insider on the edge of two warring factions. Her clan's alliance with the king gave her access to Sisera. Her extended family ties gave her allegiance to Israel. The Israelites and King Yabin's army are like two circles of a Venn diagram overlapping in Yael's tent. Like Yael, many of us exist in a complex dance of both and identities, which often lie in the margins of many of society's predefined boxes. And those identities come with unique tools. I am a queer Unitarian Universalist minister who attends a Christian church and belongs to a Jewish house of study. These identities often feel in tension with one another, even while each of these very different groups feels like my people. Maybe some of you also have experience of seemingly incompatible selves. Every day, we receive messages about who and how we should be, how our bodies should be shaped and function, who we should love, how hard we should work and at what job, what we should try to accomplish before we die. And sometimes, friends, we are guilty of giving such messages, of asking others to meet our standards. Often, cultural ideals are mutually exclusive, or our mother's expectations are different from society's, are different from our churches or our friends. Sometimes, maybe even most times, our realities do not line up with the expectations we face. And we are told again and again that only certain pieces of who we are acceptable. We are allowed to serve milk and butter, but our hammers have no place in the revolution. And so, in our desire to belong, to rest in the center of the group for once, instead of at the edge, perhaps in fear that we will be exiled altogether, we tuck away anything that might make us marginal, anything we suspect might not be welcomed by the larger group. And we think less of others who do not do the same. We start to believe the limits placed on us, that we can be a nurturer or a warrior, but not both, that we must choose between death and deliverance. We enforce those limits on others. We shrink our identities to fit in a box. We hide from who we are, and we let many of our tools lie dormant as tyranny knocks at our tent. We shame those people who choose not to hide. Have you ever been tempted to act as if serving milk is all you know how to do? Or to pretend that you are not depressed and anxious? Do you avoid talking about politics over family dinner? Are you afraid to say white supremacy in mixed company? Have you ever sat in the office on a Tuesday morning pretending you know something about football? Or pretending that you don't love Star Trek? Do you act as if you're more or less financially well off than you really are? Do you call yourself colorblind? Have you ever referred to your lover as my friend, lest anyone judge your relationship? That one hit a button. Have you ever been reluctant to admit your vocation in casual conversation? Are you ashamed of your racial or ethnic heritage? Do you keep your faith in God, in science, in your own intuition under wraps? Have you ever been tempted to hide who you are or to ask someone else to keep their quirks and differences to themselves? Have you criticized the hands that are unashamed to swing a hammer? As a queer Unitarian Universalist with membership in both Christian and Jewish spaces, I am sometimes asked implicitly or explicitly not to bring the fullness of myself. And sometimes I listen. I shrink. I hide. I try to blend in. That probably doesn't seem likely given my hair. But it's true. And just as Yael's identity at that intersection of the king's circle and Israel's gave her access to Sisera and an opening to use her various tools in service of resistance, my faith community memberships are tools which may seem mismatched, but can in fact work together to serve justice. If only I will pick them up and use them. What tools are you holding? What tools are lying next to you, forbidding or forgotten, waiting for you to pick them up and use them creatively to enact justice? What shape do your milk and hammer take? When Sisera entered Yael's tent, her options were limited. She could have gone the safer route, offering the required hospitality and hoping the whole situation would eventually go away. Instead, she fought for the justice she believed in. So must we. Yael had no guarantee of success. In fact, she was likely to fail. Think about it. A small woman alone against an army general. But complicated and dangerous as the situation was, Yael was determined to try. She used all the tools she had available, no matter how inelegant, indecorous, or improbable they seemed. What are your tools? Here's the thing. None of Yael's tools would have done the job alone. Milk and butter are satisfying, but unassisted, they would not save anyone. Had Yael swung the hammer without the soothing help of milk and butter, Sisera would surely have overpowered her. All of Yael's very different motley crew of tools were critical to her success. Useless alone, but together unstoppable. Like us, friends. Death and deliverance. What must we kill in order to be saved? Our pride, our carbon footprint, our white fragility or internalized racism, our right to bear arms unencumbered, the idea that boys will be boys. The challenges we face in our world today are no less complicated, no less frightening than King Jabin's tyranny over the Israelites. There is temptation to run and hide like Sisera, and our odds of success are even smaller than Yael's. But if Yael could try, so must we. Those tools in your hands, and more importantly, the ones lying dormant because you are afraid to grasp them, One of those tools may be the very milk to lull the tyrant, or the hammer to strike his head. Or perhaps your tools have another role to play. After all, before Sisera entered Yael's tent, he was running away from a whole army of Israelites, each with their own tools of resistance to tyranny. Even Yael's multiple tools were not sufficient alone. Complex problems require many tools to accomplish many tasks. If we are to meet our collective challenges, and, beloved, as we know, as we have heard, we face so many challenges. And in order to meet them, we need every one of us, even the people you just don't understand. We need your hands in this world, along with all of who you are, all that your hands hold. Do not shrink. Do not hide. Live into your identities, all of them. Pick up your tools, join together, and let us strike a deadly blow against tyranny and oppression. Be a part of deliverance. God has no hands in this world but yours. And you, beloved, you were made for this. Blessed be, and amen.